Hello, this is Hector Vladimir again with our 5th episode of Living Off the Grid in the City. Today is August the 18th, 2015.
I've been keeping myself so busy.
I wanted to start to wrap up the theme or the topic of disadvantages of being part of the current grid system or power structure, utility power structure, including power, electric power, water, television services, phone services, etc. The whole gimmick, the whole inclusion of all the power structures there, all of the power entities that you have a bill for basically come to your home or to your apartment or to your place of residence every month. The disadvantages of those are many. I have mentioned several, and I will begin to wrap up this section of this show. I would like to discuss just a few bits of information that I researched just recently last night on some of the statements I made in the past few shows. First of all, the relation of water to power. I will post this recording along with the link to the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, which clearly states and lays out the relationship between water and electric power. Water is highly energy demanding, as I mentioned before, consumes a lot of energy to produce, treat, generate, deliver to the home, does cost money to keep water service on, and you depend, or many of your appliances or home systems depend on water to be powered, to be energized, such as your bathrooms, kitchens, water hoses outside to do any kind of washing, etc. Not to mention how you need water for drinking and washing and other cleaning activities. Like I said, the website lays it out very clearly, and it does promote the conservation of water, not only to conserve water itself, but to conserve energy, electric energy, and the energy it takes to treat such resource. Many trucks are used to deliver water, not only for drinking, but for other uses all over the place, both to residential places and commercial and governmental, military, etc. Water is very energy intensive when it comes to treating it, as mentioned in the website. And the less water we consume, the less water we waste, the less energy that is consumed and wasted as well. And this is all according to studies and findings from the Environmental Protection Agency. Check it out. Next thing I want to discuss is the cost of energy, specifically energy that most residences use, such as power. Most people use such as gas that they put in their car, fuels such as natural gas, not only gasoline or diesel, but natural gas, liquid propane, and other fuels that they put to work at home, at work, etc. Another one is charcoal, which is made from wood, basically, or wood product. And the cost of all of these energies, all of these resources that create energy, average to nationwide, this is here in the United States, it's over $3,000 per person per year. That's a lot of money per person. It adds up. Let's say it's just $3,000 to make it even easy to calculate. That's $150,000 over a 50-year period, or more or less an adult lifetime on average here in the Americas. $150,000. That's more than the average cost of a home here in the Southeast, going by recent home prices. That's a lot of cash that you would spend over a lifetime. And again, this is any kind of energy expenditure, be it putting gas on your gas tank for your car, or buying that 20-pound LP or liquid propane gas tank for your grill to cook food. So the cost is enormous, and this is just average. On the high end, it could be about double that, if not more. On the low end, it could be just a bit less. This is average in many of the Southeast states, as I noticed on that website. Many of the states, the high end for energy use per year per person is close to $5,500 per person. And I was surprised that some of the higher energy use states are not the states that you would think that would use a lot of energy, such as California, Washington State, the northern states that you would think that they would use huge amounts of energy for the cooler weather to keep a warm environment in all of their buildings, large populations. But instead, some of the southern states, especially poorest states, Mississippi, Louisiana, some of the other southern states are the most energy consuming areas in the country, which is quite interesting. I invite you to visit this website. It's interactive. You can click on any of the United States and regions maps, and it'll give you estimated amounts of the energy used per person per year. And it breaks it down into 3 categories: transportation, combined, and residential, which transportation is probably over 50% of the energy used by each individual per year as far as cost is concerned. So again, the Department of Energy has this figure of a little over $3,000 per person per year, which adds to over $150,000 per year on average. So the amount that you can save by renouncing to such a system as the one we have right now for energy would be enormous, because the system as it is set up right now is conducive to waste and inefficiency, because it is out for profit, out to protect the growth of other corporations, the corporations that provide you with such service. And I believe wholeheartedly that if this power, if this responsibility is put in the hands of the millions of people that want power, that want energy, they will, with all of their efforts, all of their attention, heart, and knowledge and care, produce more efficiency. They will try to improve the efficiency of their own systems that produce energy for their own use very, very fast and very diligently. I mean, this is just inherent in the system. If you own it, if you produce it, you will try at all costs to improve it, because your own improvement, your own benefit, your own comfort depends on it. Another fact I looked up and I wanted to share was the efforts from power companies, from utility companies and the like, to thwart and to attack alternative energy efforts, whether it be companies, laws, you name it, individual citizens trying to get off the grid, trying to produce their own energy. Companies, utilities, and their governments are after such efforts. This is increasingly being reported in many channels throughout the internet, on TV, even on the radio. This is reported very widely. I mean, all you gotta do is do a quick search and you'll find perhaps dozens or more of reports, recent reports of utility companies trying to use their leverage, their power, political power, their financial resources, and more to try to sway their governments to limit power companies that use alternative energy such as solar, wind, etc. For example, NPR, the National Public Radio, reported recently that there was a leaked memo or a leaked presentation about the strategies that utility companies should, will, and are using to thwart the installation of roof-mounted solar panels. This is verified reports from recognized journalistic organizations that this is happening. This is not something that's just a theory by some conspiracy theorists. This is right there on the surface, black and white, very widely reported. There was another report about the same subject, same matter, and it was titled, I believe, how power companies are wielding their power over their governments or over solar. Basically what it said was that they are attempting to create a monopoly as far as being able to sell power to the people, not only in areas but in whole states. They're attempting to make themselves the only show in town, the only providers of energy, that basically you would have to go through them before you're able to sell power to anyone. If you're an alternative energy company or organization that can produce power and try to sell it to consumers. Many areas have been prevented from developing solar and other alternative energies because of laws that have been enacted that protect the utility companies. And they say that, oh yeah, there will be more than one companies laying cables and providing power, and that would be disruptive to the system, and it could cause unanesthetic sights or ugly installations, and it could be a safety issue. This is their excuse, their pretext, which is ludicrous, and it's unbased on any evidence, any kind of study. This is a monopolistic system that wants it all for itself, and it does not want to change. It wants the technologies all for itself. It does not want the people to be able to harness it and buy it and produce their own energy. They rather have you pay the bill and they take care of it. That's how they want it to be. That's how they want to keep it. They do not want it to change. And yes, there is a disadvantage, huge disadvantage to that, and it is that there is no innovation, there is no advance. Everything stays the same as it has been for the past probably 7 to 8 decades with oil and gas, where everything is just about the same. Yes, they produce it faster. It's a bit cheaper relatively compared to how it was when it first started, and taking into consideration the value of the dollar. But guess what? It is still highly harmful to, again, the economy, health, and the environment. That has not changed, and they do not want it to change because they're looking out for their own interests, their pockets, their bank accounts, and that is all. They're doing it. They're providing the service not to better the world, but to better themselves. And this is evident in the efforts they're making in trying to prevent clean energy from spreading and growing in many areas. This is evident also in a report that I will post that is titled more or less, Why Governments Do Not Want Clean Energy. Again, governments are highly, highly encouraged by multi-billion-dollar corporations. They are swayed. Their hands are forced by these multi-billion-dollar corporations that are inside of their territories. I mean, how can they not? If you have a multi-billion-dollar corporation in your city, in your county, in your state, that company is not forced to stay there longer than it takes them to move. They can just pack up and leave and go to a more friendly state when it comes to allowing them to generate profits. And that's how they fix their disagreements with any government. And how can the government not be influenced by such prospect of a company just packing up? Probably a very large employer, a very large contributor to the state, city, or county tax coffers. How can they not be highly, highly influenced by the demands of such corporation? And that is a flaw. That is a problem within the system. And that is one of the reasons why the current power structure, energy structure, should be reformed, should be very much changed. And again, this small radio show is attempting to at least start doing such things.
Another thing I wanted to cover, statistical fact that I wanted to cover, was the amount of oil that was dumped into the sea during the BP spill in 2010 in the Gulf of Mexico. It was estimated by very respectful and credible sources that 3.5 to 5.5 million barrels of oil were dumped into the Gulf of Mexico. Millions. These are from the conservative to the more aggressive numbers, estimates. The first estimate much more conservative than most, 3.5 million barrels, and it was a figure put forth by the Royal Academy or the London Royal University. 3.5 to 5.5 million barrels is a huge amount of oil and gas dumped into the ocean. It's basically an amount that we cannot even begin to appreciate because it's just outside of our reference. A barrel of oil can be refined to many thousands of gallons of gasoline. I'm not sure of the exact amount, but I estimate it to be in the thousands of gallons of gasoline. So just imagine, probably more than that. With the crude, this is crude that we're talking about. This is not refined oil or oil product from refined crude. This is crude oil and gas that is in its purest or crudest form. This is heavily concentrated material. This is not your common motor oil that you buy at the store. That itself is highly refined from crude. So this is crude oil that was dumped into the ocean, and it is very, very difficult, nearly impossible to dilute without very heavy and industrial grade solvents. So that right there gives you an idea of the extent of the damage that was caused by the Gulf spill. The last point I want to raise in this show that will be wrapping up my theme of disadvantages of being part of the power grid or power structure as it exists. And the last point is TV services. I am very much against paying for TV services for entertainment, especially because it is something that's, one, power consuming, two, time and resources consuming, and it's just unnecessary. You can have plenty of entertainment without having to pay funds for TV services. Education, inspiration, you name it, and it's there. It's happening right now. There's a report that it's about how the TV culture is just a dying culture. TV ratings are just taking a plunge all over the place. Networks are scared to death about the recent ratings that they have been getting. The major networks are rethinking their strategies, are getting more aggressive. As you can see with the TV shows, there are more everything, basically. More extreme in every sense of the word. Just flip through the channels and you'll be surprised. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. There's more violence, more exposure to hate crimes, all kinds of things that used to be taboo. Now they're mainstream, they're well accepted. All kinds of, especially violence. Violence is just something that has taken over, and it has spread wild, out of control into prime time. Every time of the day you can tune in and be exposed to scenes of violence like no other time prior. Violence has taken such hold in our society, and it's so well accepted that kids are highly encouraged to support it, to view it, to watch it, and with no kind of regard to the effects of this kind of exposure. There are groups that are beginning to pay attention and find the actual causes and are beginning to find the consequences of being exposed to a large dose of violence. A probable and likely example are the many shootings that have been happening throughout the country, the United States and the world. Mass shootings, what they call active shooters, is something that's on the rise. Obviously, in the last decade there have been a lot more than in the past. Probably about 2 to 3 decades, reporting has not significantly changed. So it's not a factor of how much reporting is done. Yes, there is more cameras out there, there's more cell phone videos and more photos. But this does not subtract from the fact of journalistic reporting done in a professional level that has not changed very significantly to the point where it's going to affect how many of those cases we see as far as shootings, mass killings. This is something that's obviously on the rise. Very likely this is because of the exposure that our culture has to violence, and at the same time with the enhanced access to guns and weapons and explosives and all this killing machinery and killing tools. But I digress on that subject. Back to my main point of TV being a highly unnecessary and even harmful habit. Again, like I mentioned, it is power consuming, consumes a large total amount of your home's energy. For example, the average amount of time that someone has their TV, or more than one TVs like most households have now, the amount of time that those are on during the day is about 4 hours average. Slightly less, could be more than that in many cases. But 4 hours out of a about 10-hour waking day, that's a good 40% of a whole day that someone's at the house. So that's a lot of power when looked at in a community level, city, county level, and a national level, all the way to a worldwide level. This is a huge amount of energy that's just being not so wisely used. Not to say wasteful, just not wisely used. A lot of that energy can be used for so many other things, including education, healthcare, and all kinds of other improvements for mankind. Having a TV on where about 40 to 50% or more is just commercial advertisement is not something that is useful for most. Yes, companies, the way it's set up now, they need to let you know what their services are, what they offer. Nowadays, I believe it's just out of hand, it's out of control, and it's just an abomination. has grown so grotesquely that it's just ridiculous. You tune in to a paid show, or where you pay for let's say a premium channel, and it's full of infomercials. I just found out that many of the networks, including the networks that were traditionally associated with education, like the Discovery Channel, are the ones that have been taking the greatest hit as far as ratings. And then it makes you wonder what exactly people are watching. I mean, just ask around. Not many people are watching educational shows, enlightening shows. Most people are just watching entertainment that's just worthless, in my mind, such as dancing shows, soap operas, stuff like that, reality shows, which have very little reality in them. They call them reality shows. Music shows, and all these things are very little value. That's what people are tuning into. Very little is used for actual gain in advancement as far as health, science, knowledge, social issues, art. News is just full of commercial advertisement, and it's just riddled with biased reporting. Not only politically biased, but also commercially biased. You don't see advertisement whenever there's a major news show where, in the news network, you hardly ever see any kind of advertisement against a major corporation because of any kind of wrongdoing or any kind of harmful product that they may be selling. Very seldom do you see commercials saying anything against the cigarette company, beer companies, the drug companies such as prescription drugs. It's just against the system where they operate. It's just worked into their system. It's just something that they do not do. They cannot do true and unbiased reporting because of all the interests and all the leverage that big corporations have on these networks, on TV shows, even on the news, especially on the news. TV is just not worth paying for. It's on its way out, according to many indicators. The internet has taken away a lot of TV's power, a lot of the TV's attraction away, and it's been mostly okay so far with the internet. They have much more variety of all kinds of commercial-free and bias-free programming, but a lot of it is beginning to get biased as well, and a lot of corporations are beginning to look for ways to charge for that material as well, namely Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime, and all the other major content providers on the internet. One way to make all those good and entertainment content free is to refuse to pay for them. And I refuse to believe that they will go away if you stop paying for them. They will remain. They will just find other ways of funding them. The quality will remain about the same, very slightly, if any difference will be noticed. And they'll just look for other ways of funding their programs. They won't go away. If they decrease in quantity, their quality will probably and likely go up. So that's nothing to worry about. And to begin with, there's nothing to worry about at all because it is not something that's necessary. Show me a study that proves, or at least suggests, that entertainment enhances a person's life significantly. I'm talking about like TV entertainment, radio, and even internet entertainment. I don't think that there are any conclusive or even suggestive studies that these mediums are actually beneficial for any individual in any kind of measurable area. I want to close with that point that TV is just not worth paying for, and it's part of the system that needs to basically be ousted. And I do appreciate your time once again. Please join me next time on episode 6. Again, this is episode 5. Hector Vladimir in the state of Georgia, recorded on August 18th, 2015. See you next time.
So purely, I'm pushing myself to the edge, not letting go away. Been testing myself by the worst. I've been pushing my mind to the most. I've been loving the people around me, but I'm so paranoid, yeah.